building relationships with just a couple of bookstores. So there's that bookstore, which is the Wellington Square bookstore in Exton, Pennsylvania. There's a bookstore called Sherman's Books in Bar Harbor, Maine, because some of my books are set in the Bar Harbor area that I've developed a similar relationship with. And then just in general, and Mark, I know you and I have talked about this previously, I generally found that other live bookstore or author events aren't worth it to me at the moment from the cost-benefit ratio. So I'm sort of focusing local instead of casting my net wide at the moment.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 245 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Today's episode is a recording of the March Reflective Round Table, and it is myself, Matty, Dalrymple, Roland, Denzel, in conversation. We talk a lot about in-person events as the pandemic is sort of opening up a little bit, print books for indie authors, challenges related to getting ARC copies for print releases, some tricks and hacks that we've used, particularly even hacks related to physical objects and in-store events. And it was a really fun conversation, and that's coming up later in this episode. But first, a word about this episode's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by the patrons of the Stark Reflections podcast. Thank you so much to the patrons who support this podcast over at starkreflections.ca/patrons. And since I haven't done this, I'm going to, I've mentioned the names as people have come on board, but what I thought I'd do is just quickly mention all the cool patrons who are patrons or have been patrons of the podcast with a huge thank you for hanging out. So we've got, in the gold status category, I've got James S. Aaron, Rachel Amphlett, Leanne Beckett, Lindsay Broker, Katie Cross, Jamie Davis, Macy Dixon, D.H. Dunn, Jamie Ferguson, Marcel Gagne, Chuck Heinzelman, David Heyman, Per Steiner K. Houghton, Michael Edwin Howell, Michael Lister, Kathy Mack, S.W. Miller, Jared Nelson, writing as J. Lane Nelson, Mary Jo Rabe, Tessa Smith McGovern, Carolyn Stein, Linda Sterling, Julie Strauss. In silver category is the Krista D. Ball, Chad Boyer, Ember Casey, Malcolm Kuhn, Sherilyn Dector, Jan Field, Linda Hill, Joanna Penn, Amy Teagan, Stanley B. Trice, Faye White. And in bronze status, we have Ellie Ash, Joanne Carson, Matty Dalrymple, Jeff Elkins, Katie, Prenthi K, pardon me for messing that one up, Kevin Partner, David Perlmutter, Johanna Rothman, Talina Winters. I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge, I do thank you guys, whether you've come in and out, in and back again, just dipping in. The support means so much, and I really greatly appreciate that. I just want to do a shout out to y'all. I'll be doing another reflective roundtable like this, hopefully before the end of April. I promised one every month once I hit that landmark of $100 per month from my awesome patrons. So thank you guys so much. I am also going to be wanting to do some reflections on a few different episodes of podcasts I've been listening to in that extra feed that you patrons get. So thanks again so much for supporting the podcast. In terms of a brief personal update, just wanted to say a special thank you to the people who reached out to me after episode 244. I am still up in Levack, Ontario, about an hour northwest of Sudbury. My mom is still in the hospital, still figuring things out, although I did have a decent meeting with social workers yesterday, which would have been the 13th, and I'm going in shortly, within the next half hour. This is early in the morning. I'm driving in because I want to do some stuff at the hospital and figure out a few more things as we try to figure out my mom's long-term care. But a huge thank you to everyone who reached out to me via direct messages on social media, via messages directly to me and emails. Just appreciate that you guys are thinking about me, and it's kind of fun to hear, and it's heartwarming to hear from people. Not just when things are sad, of course, or when you're going through a frustrating time, but sitting here recording this, you always think you feel alone, as you know, as a writer. You're doing the thing, and it's when you hear from people that means so much. So I do appreciate everyone who reached out, and the comments as well. I will not be doing comments. I'm just gonna jump into the rest of my brief personal update. So on April 12th, D.F. Hart and I released Accounting for Authors that came out. It had some fun status tags as a pre-order title. And the challenges, of course, with the print-on-demand title, the print title, which was published on the 12th, but due to Amazon's wonkiness in the way that they deal with feeds from Ingram, it's still showing a status where it's not available, or available through some really bizarre entity in the UK to ship to Canada that'll take 30 days. And that's standard for Amazon when they take print-on-demand titles from outside of KDP Print. It's kind of their passive-aggressive way, I suppose, of telling people, yeah, you should have done it directly through Kindle, direct publishing, you moron. Or at least that's how it feels. And, I wouldn't, based on their tactics and how they operate their business, it wouldn't surprise me if that was very, very purposely done. But it does normalize after a week or two, as I even discovered with the Rebel Diaries, which is the anthology I'm in with the short story. Sasha Black was the editor for that, and same sort of status. It's still kind of showing a wonky status in Canada. It's okay in .com as well as in the UK, etc. But it was kind of weird for the first couple days. Other news is in Lover's Moon. Julie and I actually got the edits back on Lover's Moon from our editor. I was so impressed with how fast she turned that around, particularly because the original contract we had was for a much shorter book. It's almost more than twice the length we anticipated, but she still managed to turn it around. Wow. Amazing. I've done my first pass this week in short snippets of time in the early AM. And then Julie's going to get it and have a pass, and then we're going to have a discussion and then get it back to our editor for another round because it's coming out in May. So that is fun and exciting and all those things. And then I'm still, as mentioned, I'm still up here, far from home, and just still trying to get by and get caught up on so many work things. That is it for my personal update. There is no post chat reflection in this episode because the entire conversation between Matty and Roland and myself is, of course, very, very reflective, and it was so fun listening back to this. Felt like forever ago that I was chatting with them, but I know it was just a couple of weeks ago. But I know you're going to enjoy this and get a lot of great tips from Matty and Roland, and maybe even every once in a while I'll throw in something useful. But here is the March Reflective Roundtable with myself, with Matty Dalrymple, and Roland Denzel. Hey, Roland. Hey, Matty. Welcome to the Reflective Roundtable Hangout.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, just so that listeners can know what voices they're listening to. I'm Mark Leslie Lefebvre. I'm the host of the Stark Reflections podcast. And then I get Matty and Roland in that order. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I am Matty Dalrymple. I am the author of the Ann Kinnear suspense novels and suspense shorts and the Lizzie Ballard thrillers. And I also podcast, speak, write, and consult on the writing craft and the publishing voyage as the indie author.
Cool. Roland.
I am Roland Denzel, and I am, in my other life, I am the author of health and fitness books. I used to be overweight, now I'm not, and I've taken that and built that into a nice coaching and author business. I'm loving it. And then I also work with authors at the indestructibleauthor.com. I help people mostly with productivity habits and some ergonomics and health, because it's, if you want to write forever, you got to keep that stuff up.
Cool. So I have like two experts here who help authors as well as write, of course. But it's like, woo, this is like an extra special bonus episode. So thanks for hanging out with me this lovely, well, it's not so lovely. We're getting snow here where I am in Waterloo, Ontario. This lovely afternoon, I was going to say. I had been hoping to talk a little bit about as we are nearing towards the end of March 2022, a lot of restrictions related to the pandemic have been lifting, and there's a lot more in-person events and things like that. It's been 2 years, well, not quite 2 years, because I have done a number of in-person events, only one in-person book signing event. But I was thinking about the concept of, in-person events and how that's gonna go, but what are the logistics involved for author copies and stuff like that. And then also I know you two are not Canadian, but also related to mostly when you think of libraries and physical copies and stuff like that, public lending right, which I harp on and on and on about every year around this time for authors outside of the US who may be able to take advantage of that. But we won't get into public lending, right? Because you two, it's just going to be like me rubbing it in your face. It's kind of like, nah, I get free ISBNs.
We'll all cry at the end.
But no. So the thought, I think, Matty, you also had something very specific that you had mentioned that would probably be something really good to talk about. Do you want to launch on that author copy sort of question?
Sure. Thank you for providing a forum to ask this question. So I have a book launch in a little less than a month, and the launch event is going to be virtual. And so I'm not planning at this point for in-person book sales that I have to lay in a supply for myself. Right. So here's my need. I need one print book that I can hold up during my virtual event that doesn't say not for resale across the front by the launch date, like guaranteed by the launch date. And then I need about 20 also not labeled, not watermarked copies, for friends and family that should be available, ideally would be available at the launch date. But, if it was a couple of days off, that would not be a problem. So the two options that that I have available to me now are Ingram Spark and KDP. Although I'm thinking there might be a third option that I should be looking at too, but Ingram Spark and KDP, I tend to go with KDP because I actually have found that I get the copy sooner. Yeah. I actually, based on a completely unscientific assessment, I've been happier with the quality of KDP than Ingram Spark, although I recognize that varies, it just varies probably from day to day. Right. But I find that the customer service that I get with KDP is generally better. So I agree
100%. There's no question about it. Amazon's customer service is solid.
Yeah. I hear people complain, but I've always had very good luck with the KDP customer service. So I think what I need to do is, because if you get a copy before you hit live on the KDP dashboard for the print copy, it will have the not for sale watermark on it. And so I think what I have to do is figure out how far in advance I need to make the print book live so that I can order it without the watermark and guaranteed get it in time for the launch, while at the same time probably not advertising that it's live, because I kind of want to make more of a splash on the official launch date. That's the dilemma I'm struggling with, and I'm looking for some input on.
Before I was going to see what Roland had to say, but before we go there, here's the thing. When you talk about guaranteeing, we talk about the supply chain, especially in the last several years, we can't rely on anything.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who's being published with Simon and Schuster Canada, that's the second time they've pushed back the release dates. Kevin J. Anderson's got a book that was supposed to be out in April that I think is being pushed back to the fall because they couldn't get a hold of the material. Now I know POD is different, so it's not the same as, but the supply issues are going to be something. So one of the things I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to hold up a model, is either if you have a decent color printer in your home, or you go to a local Staples or Business Depot or whatever, Kinko's you guys have, right? There's a popular chain in the States, and get a really high quality, just cover flat printed, and then tape the cover on top, like I did for this book that's coming out. And so this is an old Mad paperback, Mad magazine paperback, and tape the cover to, because then you have a prop, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a very like, oh my God, I don't have a prop, but this is a prop. That's all you do. And you have other books in the series that maybe have the same look and feel. And you can either tape
a great idea.
Yeah, as a wrap that goes around, right? Like wrap that goes around the book if you want. Yep. Or in this case, as you can see, this is the prop from the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, because I know the back of it was blue, so I picked a old blue and I stuck it. That may be one thing if you just need the prop, because you don't actually need the physical product.
Yep.
Just in case.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. And the other thing you could do, like, if the problem is that you need to hold it, and that's the problem. Like if it's like in a scene, there's all sorts of like book brush where they put your book in like scenes and things. And like we did that for my wife's recent book launch. But we had the same problem. And I wish I would have thought of that, Mark, because that would have been great. Because we call it FedEx, it used to be Kinko's, FedEx down the street.
Right.
And probably like for a couple of dollars, I could have had it printed and then just cut it out and stuck it on.
Yeah.
On even the proof, because like the proof looks just like it. It's the same thickness and everything. Yeah. And now I would have had that. It doesn't solve the
wrap.
Yeah. But like you wouldn't really see it too much. It's pretty good.
It's a little mise en scène, right? It's just a facade, like the old Western facades with the big fancy front of the building.
But also remember that these printers, they can print a whole cover. So like you can wrap it around, like you could print the front and the back and everything, and then just fold it and stick it on there, and like no one would notice. So
I really like that idea. And I'm also thinking that ordering a print copy, even if it has the watermark on it for the launch event, is a good backup, because I can always joke about the whole supply chain issue and say, I'd like to show you a nice one, but, and at least it's a book to hold, because I do find that I can post as much as I want to about ebook availability on social media. But as soon as I show a picture of a print book, everybody goes crazy.
Yeah.
And so I think both of those solutions, either just saying, okay, well, here's one that says not for resale. This is mine. I'm going to keep it, make a joke of it, or the wrap that you're talking about, are both great backup plans.
The other thing you can do is you have, like, since you work with authors, like what I did, and I work with authors too. So I used that as an example of like, here's what it looks like. So to talk about like the whole process that I'm going through as I'm helping my wife publish her book. Yep. So I hold it up with the watermark and say, hey, look, this is what you get when you get the proof copy. And it's a safety measure to make sure that you don't accidentally like send it out to one of your fans later, so you can sort of use that as a teaching moment as well.
For anybody who's watching the video, I'm holding up a copy that I have of one of my large print books that has the not for resale. It's not attractive, but it's not horrible,
Yeah. No, I like, and that's the hardcover, the case bound hardcover, right?
No, this is large print.
Sorry. I thought I saw the little crease in the corner that was, that you see on the hardcover.
Yeah, no, it's just the crease that you normally get on the paperback covers.
Matty, you reminded me of something. There's somebody that I know in academia who is taking their research and keeps sharing on social media and I'm going to be releasing it as an ebook. I'm going to be the author of an ebook, and kept saying ebook and ebook and ebook. And I had to keep poking them and reminding them and messaging them and saying, you're writing a book.
Exactly.
You're writing a book.
Point.
It is not an ebook. Yes, the format is an ebook, but it's a real book, and only because they come from a world where an ebook isn't a real book, because the majority of people out there in the world, outside of our very small echo chamber of indie authorship, don't read ebooks. They read print
Yeah.
books, and they only think of print books as real books, which we
Yes.
know is not true. Because
Well, I like to
real
tell
money
people
is in ebooks.
like to tell people that like your favorite band doesn't write MP3s.
Yes,
They
exactly.
write
That's a great
songs.
point.
They write a
and
song.
They're in a
Yes.
variety of
Yeah.
formats that you can
And
get
they may even
listen
call
to
it an album, even if it's not on vinyl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or whatever.
Or an EP, even though it's,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I just
So-
released 3 songs that are not physically connected to one another. I'm calling it an E EP.
exactly. So that's a really good lesson that I think we have to remind ourselves. But again, it's that the tactile experience that people still associate the passion of reading with a physical product. I keep thinking about the majority of the booktubers and the bookstagram people and the book talk people. The majority of the videos I've seen, they're doing book hauls with physical copies. They're unpacking boxes. They're holding physical products, and it's not a Kindle or a Kobo or a Nook or a iPad or whatever. It's typically a physical copy of the book. Even myself, when I want to promote a friend of mine or something like that, you say, yeah, I can hold up my Kobo with their picture on it. But I really prefer, it's a lot more exciting, even for me. And I get ebooks. I love ebooks.
Yeah.
And want to hold up the physical copy, because look behind me, right? A whole bunch of books. I don't have my Kobo on display.
Right.
My many Kobos, I should say. I have the physical books on display because they're a heck of a lot prettier. Nothing against the design of the people at Kobo, because they're awesome people. But let's be honest, these are prettier.
I did have another thought. You had mentioned about the whole supply chain issue and nothing is guaranteed. And one of the changes I've made in this book launch is that I'm hoping to have a bookstore event, but I'm not even approaching them about on the actual launch date. I think what I'm going to do is, and I did this for my last book launch and it worked out well. I got in touch with my local, in the same way people have a local pub, I have my local bookstore, and said, if you'll help me promote my live event, I will, I will send people to your store to order the book. And at the time, we weren't wrestling with the same supply chain issue. So they were able to order them and have them available for the launch date. But I think what I'm going to say is I'll warn people about this supply chain issue and extended order deadlines. I'll encourage them to go to your store to order them in exchange for you helping me promote the live event, the virtual event. And then later, a month or two later, I'd love to come in and do something when we know for sure that you'd be able to get the books. Just other little approaches of dealing with the strange situation we find ourselves in.
Can you talk about your relationship with that bookstore? Because I think that could be interesting you have a relationship with this bookstore already, right?
Yes, it's a bookstore it's just a few miles from me. And, a number of years, but pre-COVID, I did several book launch events there, or just general book signings, some individually, one with a friend of mine. And, they're very friendly to indies, friendly to local authors. They have a really faithful following. They have a great social media presence. And so I've just decided that I've really prioritized building relationships with just a couple of bookstores. So there's that bookstore, which is the Wellington Square bookstore in Exton, Pennsylvania. There's a bookstore called Sherman's Books in Bar Harbor, Maine, because some of my books are set in the Bar Harbor area that I've developed a similar relationship with. And then just in general, and Mark, I know you and I have talked about this previously, I've generally found that other live bookstore or author events aren't worth it to me at the moment from the cost benefit ratio. Yeah. So I'm sort of focusing local instead of casting my net wide at the moment. And it really worked out well that we had this really kind of effortless joint win-win last year by pointing our followers to each other's services, but really didn't take much work on either of our parts to do that.
That's cool. Roland, because of the products that you write, which are nonfiction books, and nonfiction tends to be way more of a physical object thing, right? Mm-hmm. Have you had similar relationships with local bookstores, libraries, or how have you gotten over that sort of stuck in digital indie sort of mindset?
Yeah, well, when used to live in Southern California, and there were not very many local bookstores. Like there were like 5 Barnes and Nobles within, driving range, and all the other ones were used bookstores.
Right.
So it was tough. When I moved here to Colorado, unfortunately, we didn't have that much time before the pandemic, so I was still building those relationships. There are quite a few, and but then everything kind of shut down. So I'm looking forward to being able to do some of these things. But in my experience, it's like part of it is, I think I like to do, there's sort of the in-person events have like an emotional thing for me. Like it really helps. And I also think that it helps. It's a good social media thing to, even if it doesn't, as long as you can kind of break even, I think it's good to do a couple, because then you can show it on social media, you're doing these things. And I think your fans like it, even if it doesn't really, so it's like a soft dollar benefit, right? So like you're showing that you're a real author and that you're getting out there in the community and that you like to see people. And I think your fans will say, oh, I wish I could be there too, even when they can't. So it's a nice thing to do. I've had more luck with our books being in like coffee shops and like little boutique crafts, like local crafts in San Clemente back in Southern California. My books were in there, so it was like local honey, like local things, and like it was a lot of like health. There was healthy things there as well, and so they stocked them there, and we actually sold more there than we did at the one local bookstore. Yeah.
That's
non-traditional, right? Because you're not competing with other books. You're the only books there, probably.
Yeah. And then there was a coffee house where we did a weekly writers group, and they had a shelf where we could just put our books there, and sold like 2 or 3 per month. But we also did some talks there, and because I'm nonfiction, I got more, like I would almost rather give the book to somebody, because I'm a health coach as well. So then it kind of comes back and we do courses and coaching and things like that. And so there's like a benefit above and beyond the book itself.
Right. I want to go back to that because you talked about it, Roland, and I understand, Matty, because as a business person, you have to be very business oriented and fiscally minded and say, wow, all this time and energy spent doing this. So for example, before the pandemic, I spent a summer, almost every Saturday of the summer, at a brewery that had a local market, which was fruits and vegetables that were grown locally, craft painters, and like all kinds of other things. I was the only book person there. And more often than not, I didn't break even. I broke even when it came to the sales, but when you think about the cost of gas and the cost of my time, wouldn't have broken even. It probably would have cost me more than I made. However, I made probably 3 different relationships in that in-person event, one of which is a reader who now buys every single fiction book I put out, is usually one of the first people to read and review. I tried to, because they're that important, tried to give them stuff, and they want to purchase, they want to buy. As a matter of fact, I was there in person. This person came in and was looking at my books, and I said, at the time I had these coupon codes for Kobo, like the custom code where hey, here's a big giant card, oversized card. I signed it with a black marker and said, here, they've got free Wi-Fi in there, because he was heading into the brewery, and why don't you just read this thriller for free and see if you like it. And he went in, and he came out about 40 minutes later, and he's like, oh my God, I'm on already chapter 8. Can I buy a print copy of this? I'm like, but I just gave you the book. He goes, yeah, I was enjoying reading it, but I like, can you sign the print copy for me?
That's very cool.
So there is that relationship factor. There's that I met the author, which doesn't seem like a big deal it does seem a big deal to me, because I love meeting authors, but it's kind of an exciting, like, we're mysterious creatures to a lot of people. You actually spent all this time alone, like putting stuff on paper. It wasn't just comments on social media. You actually wrote something really. So I think there's a value to that, and I don't know how to measure it. I can't. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, well, this decision to deprioritize the in-person events is not an easy one, although it got easy there for a while, but now obviously things are opening up. And so I really think about it every time that kind of opportunity comes along. I really weigh, And it's always like 49, 51%. It's not like, whoa, I'm all in for never doing author events again.
Right.
But I have to say, and this might be a good transition to one of the other topics you wanted to talk about, is that this year I'm finally doing an in-person event. I'm going to be at the Writer's Digest conference. And just for extra alarmingness, it's in New York City. And so, and I've been someone who's been very nervous about travel. And this is kind of comfortable for me because I'm in a position where I can drive to my local train station, take the train into New York, and I can pretty much walk from the train station to the hotel. So, I'm limiting the parts of the trip that are going to make me nervous. But I that was kind of a breakthrough for me, because when I agreed to do that, I kind of thought, well, if I'm agreeing to go to a conference in New York City, I really don't have a reason for turning down some of these other opportunities
Where there's less people.
without,
It's
right,
smaller
without thinking
population.
about it a little
So
more.
when is this Reader's Digest conference in New York?
It's Writer's Digest, and it's at the end of July.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to be talking about podcasting for authors and using short fiction to grow your author base.
How did you get invited to that?
Oh, networking. We could do a whole chat about networking, but I had Michael Laron, who I think most of your listeners will know, on the Indie Author podcast.
It's always a great episode when Michael's on.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I had seen that he had gotten, and I had pitched a couple of articles to Writer's Digest. They hadn't been accepted. I saw that Michael had gotten an article published, and I asked him to give me a virtual introduction to the editor-in-chief. And I sent her a series of article ideas that were all, actually, I think they were specifically looking for something on short fiction. So I was like, I'm the short fiction person, me and Mark. And so I wrote an article on that, and I pitched her a whole series of ones that are based on nautical metaphors. So I had the one about short fiction come out in the January, February issue. And then there's going to be one on framing your story coming up in an upcoming issue. And I think once you have that relationship, then, they got in touch with me and said, I think our followers would be very interested in hearing about podcasting for authors. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah.
Very
so
cool.
yeah, I think it's finding that entree and then making them really happy that they've had a relationship with you. Like I beat every deadline they give me by weeks. I never push back on any, all their suggestions are always wonderful, and I don't push back on them. Like I figure once I'm in, I want to make this the best author experience they've ever had.
Yeah, that's great.
No, that is fantastic that you're doing that. I was looking, I was like, oh, maybe I can get down to New York for that, because I really miss the city so much. And why not? I've never been to a Writer's Digest conference. I could probably still register for that, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to get to meet, I think, 3 of the people I've had on the podcast as guests for the first time in person. So Michael Laron, Elizabeth Sims, and Rand Walker are all going to be there. I'm like, oh, it's going to be so fun to meet people in person, even though, as Mark, you and I have talked about, I'm still going to want to have the don't touch me, lanyard.
Of course, completely understand that. We got to ease into these things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Matty, the virtual event, I'm curious to talk about the virtual event. What are the logistics, or how is this organized? How long is it? What are you doing? How are you selling at this virtual event as well? Is it delivered through BookFunnel, like, selling direct? Is it just links to the retailers? How are you doing that?
It is going to be super basic. It is going to be basically a 1-hour Facebook Live open house, because most of my followers are on Facebook. So I'm just going to go live. I'm going to have a couple of things. I'm going to read a chapter. I'm going to have a couple of questions in hand, but solicit questions. And I'm just going to bill it as pop in anytime during this hour if you want to say hi, because I think that people are really burning out on the, like, let's sit down for an hour and have a Zoom meeting thing. So it's really kind of a way for me to accommodate the people who have helped me, my friends and supporters, more so than it's a sales event. But I will certainly have links to buying online. I'm going to point people to bookshop.org for print copies. I'm going to offer to send them signed book plates if they want something signed, but get me out of the middle of distributing print copies. So yeah, it's just going to be very informal.
That's cool.
Facebook Live event.
Have you done the book plates that are the transparent ones, so it doesn't even look like a book plate? You can throw a signature right into the book.
No, but I want to know where I can get those.
I got them at would have been, I don't know, FedEx or whatever we've got the Business Depot here in Canada, but or office, is it Office? I don't know what the.
So it's like just like a clear sticker.
Yeah, it's like the with Avery labels. You know how they have 5,000 versions of Avery labels, so it's just a transparent one. And I don't know if it was Laura Hayden from author Laura from author. She's amazing. Or because that's a great place to get author copies, because it counts as sales and you get sort of a discount off those. But it also or it was and I'm drawing a blank on her name, who opened an indie author specific bookstore in Northern Ontario.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Susan Faw. And I think because it was either Susan I was mailing them to. I think it might have been Susan that recommended those to me. But yeah, you sign them and they're transparent. So when you open up the bookseller or the person can put them in, because I have a signed John Grisham book plate. Because it was kind of like the Random House had gotten John Grisham to sign a bunch of book plates, and instead of getting an actual signature one, I have the signature on a book plate. But if it was on a thing like that, it would almost look like he signed the book itself.
Yeah.
So that's something that I like that idea. It's like, yeah, I'll mail you the signature.
I can't wait until the technology is right, because it's called they can do it for digital printing too, but they just don't, because there's no demand for it. But you've seen Brandon Sanderson. He writes he does he signs the leaf, right? So it's the first signature. Like he has the first signature, and then they just merge that into the printing and the finishing process. And now he has a sign. He literally signed it, but then it was made into a book.
Yeah.
So right now we can't do that, but it's like it's technically possible for
it's been done, right? Margaret Atwood invested in a company 10 years ago. It was 2009. The Long Pen, you've heard of it, right?
No.
So
I have not, no.
Maybe because I was in bookstores at the time. I was running an espresso book machine, and we were doing events where we actually had it.
Pardon me, I'm thinking of that guy who does the pineapple pen.
Apple pen, no.
Do you not know?
I know what you mean.
No, I don't. I'm not
I'll send it to you later.
Okay, thank you.
Apple pineapple.
Oh, no, it's the Long Pen. So it's a technology that kind of uses robotics to mimic the signature of an author. And so the author is remotely in Toronto, let's say, and the bookstore in Los Angeles has an event. And if the bookstore had the Long Pen technology, it's kind of like doing operations remotely. It uses the same technology where the author signs and they put the book in front of it, and then they do a pen. Because what I had done 2009, I had an espresso book machine, and a colleague of mine in Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta, had one. And whenever we did events, we would host a virtual version of the event. So I'd have an audience in my store watching on a screen the author in his store doing an event. We would print the book right in our store. We didn't even have to order stock because it was available through the espresso machine. And I even had the author, we had to actually ship the books, but the author would be sitting there with the camera in front of them, and the customer in my store could talk to the author and go, okay, what's your name? Oh, Billy. Okay, Billy, would you like it signed to you? And then my colleague would then ship the book to my store for my customer to pick up like a week later. But at the time, Margaret Atwood had the Long Pen, and I said, oh my God, if only there was more than the prototype, because that would have made it perfect, because she would have been, okay, Billy, what bubble? And she's talking to Billy and signing. And then the Long Pen is actually signing her actual.
Wow.
And it was one of the, like the espresso book machine. I thought, oh my God, these technologies are going to take us to that next level. But obviously, Margaret Atwood is such a forward-thinking person. Not everyone can keep up with her.
Even this many years later.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Well, we're keeping up with her with the rest of society. Like we're following kind of like the Handmaid's Tale, sort of the misogyny.
Well, it's like you and I have talked about in the past, Mark. It's like the espresso book machine was an amazing piece of technology, but there's just not enough demand to
Yeah.
keep it up. So like the ones that are still there have been like rebuilt like a dozen times, and they have whole new computers on the front of them that don't match, and
Yeah.
so sometimes a new color printer that they make the covers that wasn't originally there to begin with. It's crazy, like how
Yeah,
it's like
I
a
mean, the last time-
Frankenstein monster.
It is. It's very much a Frankenstein's monster. Matty, when you're in New York, if you get a chance to go to the Upper East Side of Central Park, Shakespeare and Company, they have an espresso book machine in the store. And the last time I was there, summer of 2019, I was there just for a day, like in the morning, had a business meeting, then flew back that night. But I had 3 or 4 hours before I had to get to the airport. I walk into the bookstore, and lo and behold, John, the technician, who I used to work with at McMaster University Books, because he was the guy who would fly around and fix the machines. I recognize this voice. I recognize the smell of the glue, because having worked with one. And I'm like, oh my God, it's John. Cool. So I had a good conversation with him. And then I actually ordered a book of one of my clients that I'd got her set up on Ingram Spark, and said it was available through the Espresso. So I took a video of me in a New York bookstore waiting for her book to come off the printer so I could buy it from that store. It was like, hey,
That's so cool. I will
Yes.
do that because I'm very curious. I've never seen one of these in action.
you
I'm
could order
very
one of your
curious to do
books,
that.
right? Any of your books that are
Yeah.
available through Ingram Spark, so long as you check the Espresso, the EBM network, it would take them 15 minutes to find it, hit the button to print it.
That's very cool.
Wow.
So,
I'm
and
gonna have
Roland,
to
you
try
have
that.
one nearby in where you live?
I don't know if there's one in Colorado. Like there was one in Pasadena at a really
Wait,
nice
Tattered Cover?
bookstore.
Did Tattered Cover have one?
They might have one. I don't know. In Denver.
Denver, yeah. I thought Tattered Cover had one or two. I mean, there's about 150 now. Like when I owned one, it was the 9th in the world, so they're very, very rare. But I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the. It just don't let go. Keep this technology, because suddenly, with supply chain issues, think about just how much that can solve lots of those one-off special order things, especially for indie authors who are rarely going to be in stock.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that they talk about the supply chain. Like, if anyone doesn't know my background, like Mark and I have sort of convergent evolution in some areas. Like, so I was 27 years with Xerox, so I've actually physically installed these espresso book machines.
Oh, that's right. I
Very
forgot
cool.
about that.
Yeah, so and I helped people program them and the troubleshooting and connected the Ingram network and stuff like that. And so, but there's
On a Mac Mini.
People talk. The good old days. So when they talk about supply chain, like the biggest issues with supply chain are with offset press. So the big, huge print runs, and that's why these big publishing companies are having, like, if you notice, like there aren't that many, the indie problems that we're having with supply chain are like, oh, our books aren't coming as quickly as we want. But they're still coming because we just need to be in line with the next batch, and they're waiting for paper, and they have not. We're having to share our print on demand technology with traditional publishers now, who are scrambling to fill in the gaps that they can't do with their presses. So but we just got 3 boxes or 4 boxes of books for my wife's launch, because we're selling them direct as well as through all the channels. And I told her, like, oh, it says it's going to be like 3 weeks. I'm like, oh, let's do it anyway. And I did it. And then it came a week early, and then the second one came 10 days early. And so Amazon they're not having the same sort of supply chains. And it also depends on what kind of thing you're printing.
Amazon's not going to have the backlog that Ingram's going to have, because Ingram works with trad pubs, and what trad pub would ever want to work with Amazon, right?
Yeah,
Probably.
exactly.
They're not even aware that that's
exactly.
an option.
And it used to be more of an issue because, this is there's like an incestuous nature with these things. Like Create Space used to use Ingram to print, and then and vice versa, and but Amazon has now taken almost all of that in-house. So
yeah, they may outsource when they need to, because I know Amazon's very efficient at doing stuff like that. They may outsource, but they've got a lot more facilities now.
Yeah. So it's nice. And also like they prioritize, like, so your author copies, because you're ordering a big batch, they get printed in a specific facility that's better set up to do a large runs. But the one-offs or the two-offs, the three-offs where customers are ordering prime shipping and things like that, they just go in line and then they're just the next ones. That's why you're still getting, that's why we don't see the supply chain issues with print on demand that we would with some of these other ones.
Yeah, that's
But
a really good observation.
yeah, but
I actually had a question about that because the weirdest customer experience I ever had was ordering a print copy of one of my books on Amazon. And it showed up in a box with like the shampoo I had ordered and the socks. I'm like, how did that even happen? How did they get my POD book into a box with my shampoo and my socks? It was just like, I used to work in logistics. I used to support warehouse distribution. I'm like, I'm having trouble picturing how that happened.
I kind of know how, sort of. When they do print on demand, oftentimes they'll actually print 4. It's actually, sometimes they'll print 4 because it's cheaper to print 4 than it is to print 1, sometimes. And in some of the Amazon facilities, specifically, the printing facility is right beside the main distribution warehouse. My stepdaughter works at the Amazon facility here in Milton, Ontario. And what may actually happen is, as they're picking and packing for the efficiencies, because I used to when with Chapters Indigo, I did some stints in the warehouse, understanding how the and this was only books and book-like products, but understanding how orders get amalgamated and stuff, I could see it very likely that if the book was already there or available, like either on a shelf because they printed a few extra copies, or they because they do have anticipatory demand things sometimes, because it does. I mean, even with the espresso book machine, it takes 15 minutes. That's a long time when you want it. Like, oh, we'll print 2, and then that way with the next one we just pull it off the shelf. Which almost defeats the purpose. But I wonder if what happened is it just happened to coincide with, oh, hey, wait, if we wait 15 minutes or whatever it was to get the other stock from across the street, we could just ship it out once. Although I have gotten on a single order 3 separate boxes for a single order, and they all came at the same day, and I was like, wow, that
depends on what facility they print from too, and like how it's set up. Like there's like, I shared this video on the Summer Book Show about this the Make on Demand Center.
That was a great video.
It's in the right next door to the Make on Demand Center is their distribution center and their mailing center and things like that, right? So they put it over there, and like, let's say I don't know if you have this, Mark, but here in the United States, we have this thing where we can select our Amazon day, and it says, hey, use fewer boxes, use fewer deliveries. Yes. And it's usually delays it by 1 day.
Yep.
And then they collect anything you might have bought within those days. So like, because you print it on this book on Monday, it goes over to the distribution facility and they're collecting your box. Right. And then boom, and they send it out. So that could be part of it. In the olden days, they would print and it would just go straight. Here's a barcode. Here's the envelope. Here's barcode. Here's the envelope. And if the operator didn't catch that there were 3 in a row, or for some reason they got separated, they might not be remerged back into one envelope.
Right.
Well, that idea that they're probably printing more than one, even if they get an order for one, explains another thing that perplexed me a little bit, which is that I noticed that some of my large print books were selling. I think they're normally $19.99. Or were before I adjusted my prices, and they were selling for like $4.57 or something like that. So I quickly went on social media and I said, if anyone wants to get a really cheap large book, grab it now. But I bet that's it. I bet they printed 4 and they had 3 left over and they were selling them at cost.
I don't know how and why that. I don't know why maybe they thought there was demand and then they printed them and like, oh, we got to blow these out. I've done that, but I've actually gone and ordered, because sometimes it's they're selling it for cheaper than what I can buy an author copy for.
Yeah. And it also depends on where you like. So some authors use Ingram to print everything. And so even the things that are off of Amazon, and Ingram has a totally different, so they may see things coming in and this person is selling 10 books a month. So we're going to print 50 and stock them at Amazon, which is cheaper than sending the one off directly. So then if Amazon, like what happens is if you're an Amazon seller and your stuff's not selling, they'll send you a notice and say, hey, you can either pay rent on that little space, right? The monthly rent, or we'll ship them to you, or you better hurry up and sell them. Like, so you have like 30 days to take care of this problem.
Yeah.
But when Amazon is doing it, so like Ingram could say, oh, we have too many there, and their automatic system just lowers the price if it's an Ingram one. If it's Amazon, they could, like you said, like they thought, oh, it's the Christmas season, a whole bunch of people already ordered this last month. Let's hurry up and do it while we have some downtime on our printers. We'll get them these things stocked up. And then when they notice, oh, well, I guess we were wrong. Like, but that was a surge, must have been a promotion. Now we have like 20 of these books sitting around. Let's discount them. And you might not have only have seen it when it's down to 4 left.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it where mine was, my traditionally published book was marked down to this ridiculously low price, and I needed some author copies, so I bought 10 for like $4.20 each, something like that, free Prime shipping. And because for me to order author copies from my traditional publisher, I have to pay $10 per copy and shipping.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I never do
Yikes.
it, but I need them for like a book event. So I'm like, oh, perfect.
Oh man, that would have been good, because I can buy from the publisher, if I want to buy, I can get 40% off, which is what standard bookstore discount.
Yeah.
But it doesn't count as a sale,
No.
right? So, but
Sure.
I know it's a small thing, but it doesn't go through Nielsen Bookscan and all that other stuff. It just kind of comes directly from the warehouse, and they make pure profit on it, or not pure profit because they had to print them, but when
But
you
it does
order
make
through
sense.
Amazon, it counts as a sale. So
Yeah.
I'll
exactly.
get $2 back in a year and a half off of what I spent. Right. So
Yeah.
the $4
It's a good
you would
investment.
actually get royalties for that, because it was a retail sale.
Yeah, I'm putting
Well-
on as a like best practice for when I finally get back to author events. I'm always going to check online first to see if I can just buy my own books at a sale.
Yeah. And the good news is, like, most of the time when they do this huge discount, you still get the normal royalty rate. Like, you don't get paid
Yeah.
like some discount rate.
Yeah.
Amazon's just like, we just need to get these out of here. So
Yep.
the only time that it's not the case is if they found a copy somewhere else and they're price matching it. If they're price matching it, you pay the price, it could affect your royalties. But other than that, it's not too bad. Mark, you had I don't know how much more you want to talk about this, but like, you had this throwaway line a minute ago, Laura, author, right? Where you said when you buy through her, it counts as sales. Is that a service, or is that
Yeah. I'm sorry. My apologies. So Author is an online bookstore, and Laura's an indie author herself, but also there used to be a physical shop. Now it's mostly a virtual shop, and she goes to events. So I'm going to be at Pikes Peak Writers Conference in Colorado Springs in a few weeks. And she's going to be the bookseller there. She was the bookseller at Superstars Writing Seminars in February. And she orders as a bookstore from publishers and from Ingram and from whatever. And she offers to sell the book with a very minimal markup from the cost she can get it from, so that you as an author can get 20% or 30% off, or whatever it is, like just slight. So she has to make some money off of this
Mhm.
operation, but you can get a significant discount. But because she reports to Nielsen Bookscan,
Oh.
and she's ordering through the supply chain, it's supporting her bookstore, it's supporting the publisher or yourself if you're the publisher. So it's going through the supply chain, and it's counting as a sale. So it's getting fed to the bestseller lists and stuff like that. So
I love that. I'm gonna have to see if she has a blog post or something on that, or somebody has.
yeah, I
written-
interviewed her
written
on
this
the
up.
podcast. I can send that over. Or I can introduce.
Yeah, that'd be great.
her. But she's great. She's just wonderful. And again, she gets it. She's an author herself, so she's the perfect kind of person to to be sympathetic
Yeah.
and empathetic to us
I love that.
authors.
So she's going to author events, and then she's choosing among the books she has available. Like, she's the person who's standing at the author table making the
Yeah.
sale. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so she goes.
Can she
to a
pretend to
number-
be me and sign the book too?
What's that?
Can she pretend to be me and sign the book too?
Yes. But what she does is she'll have a table.
Long
So
pen.
she'll order from the supply chain or through the conference. For example, there's a consignment sheet that the conference will send out. So I got from Pikes Peak as a speaker. I can fill out a sheet and I can bring my own stock. Laura will accept them into stock. She'll ask for a discount off the retail. She won't always ask for the full 40% because she knows we can't always afford it. So she's very, very gracious and accepting of whatever. She just needs to make some money on it, and then she sells them. And then at the end, she'll send you a check, or she'll deposit PayPal, or however you want to get paid. I do know, for example, because the Relaxed Author that I co-authored with Joanna Penn, it was at such a ridiculously low discount because Joe ended up using KDP, extended distribution, for it. There's no discount to bookstores. It's kind of useless for bookstores. So Laura's like, I would order it, but I would lose money if I tried to sell this. So I had Joe send author copies to the hotel directly from the KDP facility, to my name. And so I just sent her the money for the cost of the printing and shipping. I don't know if there was shipping because it wasn't Prime or anything. And then Laura took them on consignment. And instead of cashing out at the end, I was like, well, Laura, I'm going to see you in another month. You're doing the other event that I'm going to be speaking at. So just hang on to them. And then I can either get them back from her there, or if she's sold out, great. And if she's not sold out, then I may just take them back or whatever. So yeah, it's a really great service that she provides. A permanent virtual, but she also does some selected events. Because again, she's a very small operation, so she can't be everywhere. May not be able to afford to go to New York and pay for a hotel room and the trip to sell books there.
Yeah.
Well, that's also a great idea that you mentioned. Like, if you can find a local bookstore that's willing, like Matty, once you're like need author copies for something, like if you go get a local bookstore to buy them, and maybe there's a good way that it works out for everybody. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this was a lot of fun. Thank you. Like we just
fun.
got to nerd out over author copies and book events and stuff like that. So just please let everyone listening know where they can find you online.
If they're looking for me, Matty Dalrymple, for my fiction, they can go to mattydalrymple.com. That's Matty with a Y, M-A-T-T-Y. And if they're looking for my nonfiction platform, they can go to theindieauthor.com. And that's Indie with a Y, I-N-D-Y.
You can find all of me at indestructibleauthor.com or rolanddenzel.com. It goes to the same place. And I do health and wellness as well at eatandlive52.com. But you can find me, since everyone here is an author, the Indestructible Author. It's a great place to learn more about me. And my books are there too. So
I will have links to all those things, as well as links to the episodes that you guys have already appeared in on the Stark Reflections podcast over at starkreflections.ca. Roland and Matty, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.